This isn't so much a frequently asked question as a frequently answered question. Namely, what has this way of eating done for chronic pain and fatigue?
I'm Jackie, here to answer questions about my journey from fat, weak, and sick to trim, strong, and healthy.
My experience is that it's a very vicious circle. When your pain is up, it's exhausting. And when you're exhausted, the pain is so much harder to deal with, and it feeds on itself. We have people who have fibromyalgia, ME/CFS, arthritis, Lyme disease. Frankly, we get somebody in nearly monthly that talks about some disease that's causing lots of pain that I never heard of, and I have to go Google to find out what they're talking about. The vast majority of pain is caused by inflammation, and inflammation is made much, much worse by insulin. How rapidly pain decreases on this way of eating is shocking. I was literally in my first week as the edema in my legs started to shrink, and I could feel below my knees, and then all the way down to my toes. The neuropathy, those horrible, sharp, lightning-like strikes of pain were just gone. Several months into this, my regular daily pain was gone so fast. Just the pain from the bypass and from the multiple surgeries, from necrotizing fasciitis, all of that was just gone pretty early on. One of the weirder things that happened for me was I was in 4 or 5 months in when somebody mentioned not having liver pain anymore, and I had the sudden memory of sharp pains that I used to get once in a while. I mean, they weren't something to take a pill over or anything, because they came and they went, rather like the neuropathy, and that they were gone, and I hadn't even noticed that they were gone. That would be the pain end of things. So much pain is gone. I can't even tell you how miserable I was for how long. Living in pain on a daily basis just so sucks. When they'd ask me my pain 0 to 10, it was never 0. I mean, years. It never got near 0. There were times I was on very little pain medication or only needed it very occasionally, but there was also over a year that I was on narcotics and just in pain regularly. Inflammation being decreased makes a huge difference to physical pain of all sorts. Autoimmune diseases, so many things, including, as I said, things I never heard of till someone came along and said, does anyone have this? It's just amazing how much more alive you are when you're not in pain. As for fatigue, well, there were 2 kinds of fatigue I had. One of them was the physical fatigue of I could only get up so many times a day. There were things I had to plan for, like if I was going to go grocery shopping on Wednesday, I couldn't go out of the house Monday and Tuesday. I had to rest up for that, and that after I went, then I had to rest up Thursday and Friday. So there was that type of fatigue, like physically unable to do things. But there was also brain fog, long periods of time where I just could not respond to people. I was not getting enough oxygen to my brain, and I couldn't stay awake. And when I was awake, I was just incredibly stupid. People didn't believe I was stupid when I talked to them, but like I had all these puzzle games on my computer that I would play, and like years went without me getting a high score again. So I knew my brain was working much more slowly, even when speaking to someone they couldn't necessarily tell. But I also didn't know when I'd have it and when I wouldn't. I never went to a doctor's appointment without having a written note, because I might be too stupid to remember what I needed to talk about when I was there. I never knew when that would happen. I didn't drive for years, or very rarely, because I was brain fogged. All of that fatigue. I was on my first fast when I went out multiple times in a day. I went to an auction with an extra person there to bring me home in case I was too tired because I couldn't stand that long and blah, blah, blah. And I just stayed all day. And then went out the next day and then went out a third day in a row. It blew my mind. So, I mean, it obviously depends on the cause of your pain and your fatigue, but I have certainly never heard anybody say that it didn't get better. It certainly never got worse. And some of the stories in the group are just so amazing at how much healing there is and how much more life there is when you're not sick and tired of being sick and tired and hurting. If you're hurting, I do hope you will listen to my, I'll link it down below, series on how to reverse diabetes, because no matter what's wrong with you now, well, at least in my case, diabetes is the first thing that went wrong. I felt fine for decades with diabetes until everything else went wrong and it got worse and worse and worse and worse. Hopefully you find me before you're at that point. Although if you're watching a video about how to reduce pain and fatigue, maybe not. But you can, and you can do it by reversing your diabetes and adding fasting, which increases autophagy and the healing that happens inside of your cells. It is so cool. Autophagy it's not the coolest thing since sliced bread, because it's way better than sliced bread. Reversing diabetes and lowering your insulin so that your inflammation decreases as your insulin resistance does. These are huge. Will make such a huge difference in your life. So I'll link to that playlist down below. And I look forward to you feeling better.